We feigned familiarity with the Browns for 17 years. We've picked apart every choice, every tear-filled meltdown, every blowout family get-together. What if I were to tell you that we only knew half? What if the greatest shocker of all time in Sister Wives history never happened before the TLC crew to start with? This is the irony. The real evidence for manipulation, bias, and decades of broken trust wasn't captured by producers. It was captured by the Brown children themselves. Sister Wives Real News on TLC. Today we're presenting a shocking story that has rattled the very foundation of the Brown family. A story built from inside rumors, courtroom scandal, and voices in the family who've been silenced too long. This is the story of the Cody Brown tapes, and once you've listened to what they have to say, you'll never watch Sister Wives the same way again. We've spent weeks verifying these claims, and the details are jaw-dropping. Think you've already seen the family drama unfold on TV? Think again, because what really happened makes the show look tame. But first, before we get into the evidence, the tapes, and the decision that left Cody Brown and Hawk to his own children for nearly $1 million, do me a quick favor, subscribe and enable notifications. You don't want to miss the developments we have in store. Now, let's lift the veil. The collapse in this family did not occur overnight. To understand how things came to a head in the courtroom, we have to go back, not just to the relocation to Flagstaff, but to patterns that have existed all along but were working undercover in plain sight. All of you have witnessed it. All of you have labeled it. We've all referred to it as the Robin factor. It began with fan rumor, only to explode into undeniable evidence. Cody's finances, time, and effort started flowing into one house, while the other family members were scrambling over crumbs. We saw it with the failed My Sister Wife's Closet business, which Robin rammed through at the expense of the other wives' livelihood. We also saw it when the family moved their life to Flagstaff, a move insiders say was prompted primarily by Daton's choice to pursue college. The move not only unsettled the family, but it also contributed to the financial meltdown in Coyote Pass. But Cody always had a comeback, always an excuse. He talked of the big picture, of family culture, of leadership. He dodged criticism and even gaslit the wives, and us, the audience, into doubting what we saw before our eyes. But while we fought, the kids lived it. And soon, they'd had enough. Come the lawsuit. In early 2003, there was a low-key filing in family court. The plaintiffs, 4 of Cody Brown's adult children. The defendant? Their dad. The charge wasn't dollars initially, it was emotional damages. Their attorneys used words such as systematic parental alienation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Let those words echo in your mind. Adult children who'd grown up under the microscope, mastered the art of presenting a picture-perfect family, felt their only means of escape was to sue their own dad. At first, they were not asking for a circus. They weren't asking for cash. They were asking for mediation, acknowledgement, an apology, just that he hear them out. But to Cody's inner circle, he replied in the negative. To him, it wasn't about responsibility, but betrayal. He allegedly called it a despicable money grab, figuring that Christine and Janelle had orchestrated the entire event. He prepared to battle. He prepared to expose lies. What he was not ready for was the kid's secret wild card, his own words, recorded. And that brings us into court. A witness had termed it a powder keg waiting to blow. On one side were Gwendolyn, Garrison, and Gabriel and their attorneys. Paydon was there but in an adjacent room, added as a plaintiff. Christine and Janelle were standing behind them, resolute and silent. Across from them Cody sat with his attorney, blank. But the silence was more deafening than anything. Mary was not there. Neither was Robin. Cody was actually alone at last. Day 1 was filled with testimony. The children testified in exclusive testimony. They described forgotten birthdays, special occasions forgotten, and a father who was all but non-existent in their lives. Yet Robin's children had an in-the-trenches, full-time dad. Garrison recorded the pandemic-era phone calls, during which Cody called him a rebel and traitor for wishing to see his girlfriend, while Robin's children still had a babysitter, still had social interaction. Gabriel's testimony stung most. We saw his forgotten birthday on TV, but in court he testified about this terrifying moment. After a few days, Cody bought one of Robin's children an expensive gift just because. The contrast was heartbreaking. The entire while, Cody sat silently, griping to his lawyer, shaking his head, dramatizing himself as victimized by a smear campaign. But day 2 came. And that's when the tide turned. The attorney for the children rose, addressing the judge in measured calmness. She responded to the defense contention that these children were malingering, bitter, manipulated by their mothers. And then she dropped the bombshell, "Your Honor, they're not leaving anything to chance. They have the tapes." The attorney's words cut through the courtroom like a knife. This was not about logistics, this was about choices. Choices that revealed Cody's true priorities. And with that, the plaintiff's team was ready to play their first piece of evidence. A whispered hush descended on the courtroom. Cody's lawyer was rapid to object, but the judge, after consideration of the allegations of emotional distress, overruled. Christine reported that she had buried her face in Janelle's shoulder and wept silently. Janelle remained tense, her tears streaming down her face as hard as stone. And Cody? His bravado was washed away for the first time. His face turned pale. The man who always had an excuse for every situation, a spin for every circumstances, was now a man caught in his words. Even the judge cringed, removing his glasses consciously, looking at Cody with the look of deep disappointment. That single sentence, "Robin's family first," was the epiphany. It was not coincidental. It was confirmation. It was confirmation. But here is the best part, it was only the start. The attorneys for the plaintiffs had assembled a cache of evidence that left nothing to chance. Dozens of tapes, 3 years' worth, all proclaiming the same thing. One of them had Gabriel sobbing for help with finances. Something any parent can be man enough to stand up to. Cody waved it off as drama, explaining that he was in the process of building a multi-thousand-dollar gaming setup on Dayton. Consider that, one son sobbing for guidance with something important, waved off so the other could have his new diversion arranged. Yet another series of calls was devoted to Isabel in preparation for her spinal procedure. We saw on the show how Cody had declined to go with her citing COVID, but the calls showed a much colder picture. Isabel cried, pleaded with him just to show up. Cody's answer? He would not risk missing out on time with Aurora and Brianna. He told her that their mental health mattered too much to him. That is, while his daughter was going through life-altering surgery, he was less concerned about being around Robin's kids. The courtroom witness described it as obscene. And then there was the exchange with Garrison. That one was not somnambulant, as were the rest, it was fiery. Garrison, off to buy his own home, was scolded by Cody. Rather than pride, he accused him of deserting the family. And then came another disgusting comparison. You know who would never disrespect me like that? Solomon. He knows about family. To contrast Robin's young son with his older son in the army was a heartless reminder of Cody's queasy priorities. And evidence wasn't finished with tapes. The plaintiffs provided notarized transcripts and a forensic audio analysis, showing the tapes were real. Cody's side tried to make the argument they were fabricated, but the experts made that defense on the sidelines completely irrelevant. Along with the texts. They hung side by side on a massive screen, the jury observing side-by-side dialogue. Left, a text from one of Cody's older children. "Hey Dad, seems like you can stop by this week. Would love to see you." Hours passed. Finally, a one-word reply, "Busy." At the right, a message from one of Robin's children. "Dad, my car is making a strange noise." Cody responded nearly immediately, "On my way. Do you want me to pick you up a coffee?" Time and again, the dualism was evident. To one set of children, he was not there. To the other, he popped up in seconds. Even the books documented some instances where Cody ghosted out overt invitations from Janelle's children, only to spin around a few minutes later and text Robin, "Just did my workout. Thinking of you." Do you need something for you or the kids? This wasn't unavailability. This wasn't misunderstanding. It was a man who had made a decision to choose one family, and leave the rest high and dry. And that mountain of evidence just grew and grew. Everything the fans had been guessing about for over a decade suddenly all connected, bridging what we were watching on television to what actually occurred in the courtroom. What is so eerily fascinating about this case is that viewers have been witnessing an edited version of events for years. This case is the director's cut, the genuine, unedited truth behind the carefully cut scenes. On screen, Cody frames his decisions as about logistics and limitations. I'm not going to be a surgeon. I'm not going to be a nurse. I'm just in the way. He blames COVID restrictions, distance, and the challenges of managing a large family. In the courtroom, however, the audio recordings revealed the real reason. I cannot risk bringing anything back to Aurora and Brianna. I can't be 1,000 miles away if they need me. It wasn't a question of logistics. It was a question of priorities. One family, not the whole one. To the press, Cody had presented the conflict as a question of respect and obedience. His sons had been portrayed as rambunctious, narcissistic, even adulterous for fantasizing about normal social lives. To the courtroom, the testimony told otherwise. Records and tapes attested that it was never as much about rules. It was favoritism and control. While one set of children were left behind, a nanny could have open access to Robin's house. The pandemic was not an act of protection. Instead, it provided a chance to quarantine Cody and his beloved family, to protect them from the others. Financial distinctions were also uncovered in court. The lawyer for the plaintiffs drew a clear distinction between emotional abandonment and economic abandonment. Robin's other kids battled to get help with college or a car down payment, but Cody co-signed loans and bought luxuries for Robin's children. The picture that was painted was clear. The Browns were no longer one family. They had fallen into a two-world universe, Robin and Cody's tribe at the hot center, the others in cold orbit, moving away by the year. This suit pulled back the curtain on reality TV, making 10 years of viewer speculation official by the law. It was all scripted. The proof was irrefutable. The TV program we watched, with its phony smiles and staged tears, was half the story. The judge heard the tapes, read the text messages, and observed tearful testimony. Cody Brown's carefully built image of a kind patriarch was being dismantled piece by piece, not by fans or critics, but by his own kids. The question that hung in the air: how do you place a price tag on a childhood of suffering? How do you quantify the damage caused by a father who brags with pride that there are children of his that don't count? The answer arrived in the guise of a verdict that shook the family to their very foundations, a finding not merely compensatory but punitive. Part 1, and silence was broken. The undeniable audio testimony of the children exposed Cody's favoritism. From phone calls about Isabel's surgery to text messages that revealed his neglect, the landscape was uncovered. The trial was over, and now the judge was set to render a decision that would change the Brown family dynamic forever. The courtroom was small, unbearable. Cody, who had slept the entire night with attorneys around him, had a fatigued face but the same obdurate look, hoping against hope to be the victim. The children, however, were stubborn. They were no longer arguing, were asking for closure. As the judge arrived, quiet fell like a blanket. He did not play with papers or fool with his microphone. He merely looked at the fractured family and began to speak, his tone measured, calculated, and cutting in its accuracy. "Brown," said the judge, "the last few days have witnessed evidence and testimony heard and probed in this court which reveals a most disturbing scenario. You sought to present yourself as a patriarch with the added burden of a plural family. But the evidence varies from this account. It refers to something more calculated." Piece by piece, he took apart Cody's conversation. This is not a case where there's a father who's spread too thin. The conversation and digital evidence show a clear, consistent pattern. You were readily available and nurturant to one set of children and at the same time dismissive and emotionally unavailable to the others. It's dramatic. This was not random, it was a choice, day after day, year after year. The judge continued, addressing the abuse of patriarchal authority. You have always used your role as head of the family to demand respect and obedience. That is not a crown. It is a mandate which you could not fulfill. You used the pandemic as a shield to discriminate for some children against others, instead of a protection for the family. The courtroom was now unaccounting. Evidence that had been concealed behind camera angles and reality TV editing was laid bare. The children's voices, their tapes, their texts, their testimony had howled louder than any precisely created scene ever could. Cody did not use his position to cover his entire family, as he claimed. Instead, he used it as a weapon, cutting people and planting loyalty obstacles he himself did not follow in his own beloved residence. Affection and love were conditional, a tool of control rather than comfort. That was not leadership, it was an egregious abuse of parental power. Most deplorable of all was the violation of trust, emotional and fiduciary. The most fundamental duty of a parent is to provide security and unwavering love. The most horrifying piece of evidence was the tape where Cody unambiguously told a child, "Robin's family comes first." By those few words, he justified what they had feared for decades. He inscribed their ranking into words, telling them in so many words they stood second. The emotional harm that they inflicted with that remark cannot ever be quantified, a hurt that can affect a person's self-perception for a lifetime. For the first time, the judge's tone was soothing as he addressed the children. He nodded in acknowledgement of how far they had to stretch to make their pain heard and thus give their experience credibility. And then he addressed Cody again. Accordingly, the judge declared, this court finds for the plaintiffs. Cody Brown is responsible for the intentional infliction of emotional distress on his children. A wave of subdued relief swept over half of the courtroom. Christine and Janelle finally broke down, holding each other in a silent, weeping embrace. And then there was the word that left everyone speechless. The judge, shoving his glasses up onto the bridge of his nose, read the final page of his verdict. For this long and documented history of emotional abandonment, the court hereby awards the plaintiffs damages in the amount of $940,000. The sum hung suspended in the air like a suffocating weight. Cody's mouth hung open, his face a visage of shock and fury, mouthed, "No, no way." The gavel came down. It was final. The figure was not arbitrary. Internal sources of the hearing revealed the split of the final judgment. Base damages for emotional distress totaled $800,000, to be split 4 ways among the 4 plaintiffs, for the 10-year abandonment and the unassailable recordings. Punitive damages were $100,000, $50,000 for Isabel's surgery, representative of the cycle of neglect, and $50,000 for COVID-era solitude, ignored birthdays, and gaslighting the boys. Lawyer fees and courthouse expenses totaled another $40,000, to make sure the kids were not penalized for pursuing justice. So the figure was $940,000. The total did 2 things. It validated the children's hurt and punished Cody's pride, intransigence, and absence of guilt. It was never, however, about the money, ever. By family friends, the kids responded with muted, tearful relief. For them, this had never been about a settlement. Their pain had been delegitimized, deemed excessive or unfaithful melodrama for attention seeking from their father. All they needed was for some outside authority to be able to say, "Your pain is real." And that is what the judge did. The $940,000 wasn't money, it was an apology in the guise of a lawsuit Cody would never file, evidence that the children were innocent. To Janelle and Christine, the verdict was final exoneration. They had fought for their children, constantly stereotyped as bitter or manipulative wives. This ruling set that their love and commitment had been validated. It wasn't an act of financial charity, it was reclaiming truth. The repercussions have been earth-shattering. The in-court drama didn't stop when the gavel came down. Cody stormed out, allegedly, furious and unhinged. The verdict did more than expose decades of emotional neglect. It set off shockwaves still felt today within the family, reorienting relationships and dynamics that will continue to reverberate for years to come. Cody allegedly refused even to address his lawyer afterward. The family sources indicate that he spent the next 48 hours in a complete rage. He reportedly sent a series of angry group texts, unfortunately, not to the children who had sued him, but to Janelle and Christine. In them, he referred to them as greedy traitors who had turned his own children into greedy little monsters. He reportedly wrote, "You couldn't just leave. You had to try and destroy me. You'll never see a dime of this. This is war." Cody sees himself as the ultimate victim, a man betrayed by those he slaved for. There is no remorse, only fury, and a thirst for revenge. His legal team has already filed a notice of appeal, but financial experts say overturning a judgment backed by such concrete evidence is highly unlikely. The brutal truth of the $940,000 judgment is setting in. Coyote Pass, common property he owns with his ex-wives, will likely be the only piece of property worth anything. And then there's Robin Brown, the lady at the center of the controversy. Friends report that she is a master manipulator of deflection, playing victim and victimizer of herself and her children. She was not present in court but reportedly was upset, not at Cody, though, but the kids. Robin has been sobbing uncontrollably, a source reports, telling friends that this is a coordinated assault on her and on her tender-hearted children. She is said to believe that Christine and Janelle brainwashed her children for years so they would hate her. She's told friends, "They've always resented what Cody and I have. They couldn't stand him being happy. They are now taking their own kids and using them as pawns to try to ruin our lives and take from us what we've built." Note the language, our lives, what we've built, her and Cody's, not the family's. Robin has entered total lockdown mode, confining Cody away from any opposing voice further, validating his sense of persecution. She is the victim. Her children are the victims. The multi-million-dollar mansion has turned into a fortress, confining her and Cody within, cut off from the rest of the family. And there is Mary Brown, the family ghost. Once more, her role is tragic and enigmatic. She failed to appear in court and Cody, Christine, or Janelle have not seen her since the verdict, it is said. She is in shock, sources say. She had clung for years to dreams of reconciliation for thinking back on what the family had been. The suit and Cody's behavior showed that his indifference to her was not a one-time thing, it was symptomatic of a larger tendency to brush off anyone not directly in Robin's circle. A friend supposedly told a friend, "She's mourning." As though she finally needs to realize that the man she lived with her entire life is dead, and the man who is left is a stranger. This choice is the push that will set her free at last. TLC and the fandom are also in a firestorm. Internet reaction has been nuclear. Hashtags demanding justice for the Brown children trended for days. Facebook and Reddit forums have exploded with fans watching old clips again. Former sympathizers for Cody are now against him, and TLC are in no win. Sister Wives has been built around a premise now legally proven to be a fabrication. How does the network keep having a show about a patriarch who must shell out nearly $1 million in damages to his own kids? Our sources tell us that the network is in an uproar, pondering whether to fight the lawsuit, just ignore it, or cancel the show completely. All bets are off. The Brown family drama maybe got too ugly, even for reality TV. But here is where things take a turn for the worse. What if this is not just a tale of a careless dad, a spoiled wife, and entitlement brats who deserve justice? What if it is more, and it's uglier? As told to one insider, far down in the trenches of Sister Wives production, and with a proven track record of accurate leaks. The rumor mill is burning. Robin Brown could have been the secret behind-the-scenes mastermind of the entire lawsuit. Crazy, right? Take a look at the motive. For all these years now, it has been assumed that the ultimate plan for Robin was to be Cody's one and only wife, body and soul. Anything that challenged her complete control had to be destroyed. What if, subtly over the years, she encouraged Cody's evilness, allowing it to consume him? What if she encouraged the elder children towards documented record-keeping, teaching them the importance of receipts, documentation, recordings? Our informant says that Robin may have planted the seeds in the early days with something such as, "If you ever do have a serious talk with Dad, perhaps record it so there is no misunderstanding." An innocent proposal, except that it was a command to make a case in court. The tapes were not solely the children's initiative. They were operating according to a script she had helped write. And what about profit motive? Where money is, motive is. Track the money. Cody is in debt to his kids for nearly $1 million now. With no cash in hand, his only real possessions are tied up in Coyote Pass. He may have to sell out his share of the land, but who does this benefit most of all? Robin. She has been playing at this game to control this entire situation from day one. This option would effectively ruin Cody financially, leaving him financially indebted to Robin for the rest of his life. It would make it more difficult to sell the only asset still keeping him tied to Janelle and Mary, which would enable Robin to keep her stake and even build additional power at Cody's detriment. She loses nothing, she gains. The worst part of this theory is the emotional isolation. The lawsuit does in one moment what decades of passive resentment could not. It destroys Cody's relationship with his older children irrevocably. A courtroom fight this out in public, there is no way reconciliation can happen. Holiday dinners, gatherings, day-to-day familiarity, too late. By filing the lawsuit under the radar, Robin apparently gets just what she has always wanted, Cody Brown single, needy, and legally separated from his initial family. She does not even use the axe herself, she gets the children to do it, and she plays the victim the whole while. Considering it this way, her decade-long drama of tears and worry for family harmony, always causing conflict, is less hypocrisy and more a shrewd strategy. As far as the latest news goes, this saga is still unfolding on a daily basis. Cody's attorney has made a formal appeal of the ruling, but legal analysts agree that it will be challenging to overturn a judgment on massive audio and documentary evidence. The appeal could take another year, adding more legal fees to Cody's costs. TLC has spoken not a word, and insiders report production on Season 2 of Sister Wives has been indefinitely delayed while the network considers the fate of the Brown family saga. Cody and Robin's Facebook and Twitter accounts are quiet. Their pages remain out there, but no tweets, guest appearances, or comments since the verdict was handed down. Cody and Robin are in exile. And the remainder of the children, Christine and Janelle, have moved along in silence. There are no public comments or releases, merely the quiet acceptance of the judgment of the court. And so it is, the story of the Cody Brown tapes, a saga of sorrow, proof, and an astronomical cost for a father's failure. It's turned everything we thought we knew on its head, and opened our eyes to the blacker truth behind the telefancy reality TV facade. We've laid out the facts, the reports, the theories. Now it's your turn, the public. Is this an open and shut case of a father's massive failure, or was Robin Brown the mastermind behind it all, playing a long game of chess that concluded with checkmate? Leave a comment below and let us know. This is one of the largest reality TV scandals of all time, and the scandal has just begun. Thanks for watching this exclusive 2-part in-depth exposé. Don't forget to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you won't miss follow-up stories as this drama continues to play out. Until next time, stay safe and keep watching closely. The truth is always that much more exciting than the cameras ever let on.